don't feel so good," Rajesh mumbled as he felt severe pain in his abdomen. He tried to get up but vomited on the floor. He was horrified to see blood in it, and he ran toward the washroom, but everything turned dark, and he fell. His last thoughts were a picture of an old lady, a beautiful old lady. Why did he fall, and who was responsible for his condition? You will soon find out. Rajesh was a 17-year-old exchange student from India, and he came to the United States in a student exchange program. He was a bright and shy boy, but soon he made friends with Cassidy, William, and Butch. They belonged to the elite class and were very open-minded. However, they were all weak in their studies. Early on, they didn't really notice Rajesh, but during the first assignment, he aced the exam while William and Butch hardly passed and Cassidy failed. They got scolded by the professor and were warned that if they do not improve their grades, they will be dropped from the program. That night, the three friends met at a cafe to figure out their next steps. While they sat drinking, William complained, "We've gotten through school by bribing teachers or because they wanted us to look good for our dads." Butch chimed in, "Yeah, my dad even said he'd cut me off if I don't start taking my life seriously." Then Cassidy suddenly had an idea. "Why don't we get Rajesh to help us with our studies?" She suggested trying to charm Rajesh into helping them. William immediately liked the idea, but Butch wasn't so sure. Without wasting time, Cassidy approached Rajesh. At first, he was hesitant. Back in India, he had always been told to stay away from girls, and he wasn't used to anyone approaching him like this. But Cassidy, with her blonde hair and stunning looks, eventually persuaded him. Shy and blushing, Rajesh agreed to hang out with her and her friends. They invited him out for drinks, but he said no at first. However, after spending a few days with them, he gave in. Cassidy started taking Rajesh to fancy places. This made him uncomfortable because he didn't have much money and didn't like others paying for him. Cassidy also introduced him to new things like meat and alcohol, which were new to him. Rajesh's first time trying these things was quite a story. The first time he ate meat, he couldn't handle it and ended up throwing up. His friends laughed a bit and Rajesh managed a shy smile afterward. Drinking alcohol was another new experience. After his first shot, he felt so dizzy that Cassidy had to catch him as he almost fainted. Despite these embarrassing moments, Rajesh slowly began to enjoy his time with the group. Cassidy was always there, helping him through the awkward times and slowly gaining his trust. Rajesh started feeling more confident and liked being part of this exciting group of friends. But Rajesh didn't realize that Cassidy and her friends had another reason for bringing him into their group. They weren't really interested in being true friends. They just wanted Rajesh to help them get better grades. As Rajesh got more involved with them, his initial worries disappeared, replaced by a new sense of belonging to a group that seemed fun and carefree. Little did he know, this new world would lead him into some dangerous situations. Rajesh started acting like Cassidy's personal helper, always bringing her gifts like chocolates and flowers, and being there whenever she needed him. He didn't realize she was just using him and leading him around in circles. One day, he decided to surprise her, but found her crying instead. He quickly went to her, hugged her, and asked her to tell him what was wrong. Cassidy dried her tears and told Rajesh that she was struggling with her grades. Her parents were very strict, and she was scared of being kicked out of the program. Rajesh felt really bad for her and got caught up in her story. He tried to make her laugh with some not-so-great jokes, which Cassidy laughed at as if they were the funniest thing ever. Finally, Rajesh promised her, "Don't worry, I'll help you. I'll even do all the work if I have to." Cassidy thanked him with a kiss. It was Rajesh's first kiss, and he was thrilled. From that day on, Rajesh started spending all his time helping Cassidy. He did her homework, wrote her notes, and even worked on her assignments. He felt valued and fell deeply for her. He was so caught up in the excitement of his first kiss and trying to make her happy that he didn't see how much he was being used. At first, Cassidy shared her assignments with William and Butch to copy, but soon Rajesh was doing their work too. In return, they occasionally took him to parties and bought him drinks. On his birthday, They threw him a big party with a cake, a horse parade, and lots of fun. Rajesh was so touched that he cried from happiness. Cassidy hugged him and said he was the best person she knew. Feeling appreciated, Rajesh started doing whatever the group asked. He even took risks like buying drugs for them, completed all their homework, and marked their attendance when they skipped classes. This went on for a while, and Rajesh felt like he was part of something special. However, he didn't realize how much he was being taken advantage of. His kindness and eagerness to help were being exploited by his friends, who cared more about what they could get from him than about his well-being. As time passed, Rajesh's own grades started to drop. He was so busy doing everyone else's work that he neglected his studies. He was caught up in feeling needed and didn't see the damage it was doing to his own academic life. One evening, sitting alone in his room, trying to catch up on his own studies, Rajesh began to think about the past few months. He started to notice how one-sided things were, with him always giving and them always taking. A sense of doubt began to grow, and Rajesh started to question whether his friends truly cared for him or if they were just using him for their own gain. This realization hurt, but it was necessary for Rajesh to see the true nature of his relationship with Cassidy, William, and Butch. Rajesh, overwhelmed by emotions, confronted Cassidy, William, and Butch while in tears. They quickly hugged him, reassuring him that he was just overthinking things and that people who were jealous of him were trying to use him. Although still unsure, Rajesh was somewhat convinced by their words and decided to continue hanging out with them, but with a bit more caution this time. Soon, Rajesh's life seemed to improve. Cassidy gave him lavish gifts and even invited him to live rent-free in a part of her villa. Other girls started noticing him, and his confidence skyrocketed. He began to enjoy his new lifestyle even more, and even had his first sexual experience with a classmate. From then on, Rajesh became quite popular. His studies took a back seat as he spent his nights partying, drinking, having sex, and occasionally using drugs. During the finals of their third semester, Cassidy approached Rajesh, claiming she was sick and couldn't attend the exam. Rajesh immediately offered to take the exam for her, but she initially refused. Rajesh persisted, desperate to help, and Cassidy eventually gave in with a heartfelt hug, saying, "I wish I could marry such a guy." Lost in his feelings for her, Rajesh dressed up as a girl, covering his face with a veil, and took the exam for both himself and Cassidy. He first completed her exam and then his own. The professor noticed Rajesh's late arrivals and strange behavior and warned him that such mysterious actions were unacceptable, but allowed him to continue since he had excelled in previous exams. When the results came out, Rajesh barely passed, while Cassidy scored very high grades. Rajesh was disappointed with his own performance, but happy for Cassidy. On the day the results were announced, Cassidy threw a party where she revealed that she was engaged to Butch. Rajesh was stunned. He ran to her, pleading, telling her everything he had done for her and confessing his love. Cassidy laughed at him, accusing him of taking advantage of their friendship and telling him that she only saw him as a friend. She bluntly told him to pack his bags and leave. Rajesh was devastated. His scholarship was revoked due to his poor grades. All his friends abandoned him, and he was left with nowhere to go. Facing deportation if he couldn't secure another scholarship quickly, and with no job to fall back on, he didn't even have any savings. Rajesh felt utterly betrayed and alone, unsure of how to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. One day, Rajesh was sitting alone on the university grounds, sobbing, when Isabel Rothschild, a 65-year-old wealthy lady, approached him. She recognized him from one of Cassidy's parties. Isabel invited Rajesh for a drive and took him to a luxury restaurant. As they sat down to eat, she asked him what was troubling him. Rajesh poured out his heart, sharing his recent ordeals and betrayals. Isabel listened intently, offering words of comfort. She expressed her disappointment with the current generation's behavior and assured Rajesh that he wasn't at fault. She believed such a kind-hearted boy deserved a second chance and proposed a deal. If she paid his tuition fees, would he promise to be a good boy and make the most of this opportunity? Rajesh agreed, grateful for the lifeline, but deep down, he struggled to let go of his past traumas. Despite Isabel's generous offer, Rajesh found it challenging to focus and regain his academic standing. The trauma and heartbreak had taken a heavy toll, and he failed to secure the scholarship he desperately needed. Devastated, he broke down in tears once more. Seeing his despair, Isabel made another surprising offer. She proposed marriage to him, suggesting that as her husband, he could live as a citizen and would no longer have to worry about being deported. Rajesh was taken aback by the proposal. He initially refused, unable to imagine marrying someone out of convenience rather than love. However, he thought about the immense pressure his parents would face if he returned home a failure, and the shame that would follow him. Weighing his limited options, he saw Isabel's proposal as a practical solution. After some reflection, Rajesh rationalized that living with Isabel might not be so bad. He could access her fortune, and it would allow him to rebuild his life, and perhaps even seek a form of revenge against Cassidy by proving he could rise above the betrayal. Convinced, Rajesh agreed to marry Isabel. Rajesh and Isabel got married with a big wedding, and Rajesh moved into her house. At first, he thought Isabel was like a guardian angel who had saved him from a tough situation. But soon, his feelings changed. Isabel began to make unwanted advances towards him that made him very uncomfortable. She was forceful, and Rajesh felt he couldn't stop her. These forced, intimate moments made him feel trapped and unhappy. In the morning, Isabel would act completely different. She was nice, making him coffee, breakfast, and driving him to university. She got him the best tutors and a membership at a sports club. It seemed like she was doing everything to make him happy. However, every night, she would demand intimacy in a way that made Rajesh feel terrible. This situation started to affect his health and his spirit badly. As time went by, his classmates started whispering about his strange relationship. They called him names and guessed what might be happening, which made Rajesh feel even worse. One day, William, one of his old friends, saw him with Isabel and later warned him that Isabel had a bad reputation. Rajesh got angry and told William to stay out of his life, even punching him during their argument. William tried to remind Rajesh of their friendship, but Rajesh didn't listen and walked away. Even though Rajesh ignored William's warning, he started to notice his health was getting worse. One night, he saw Isabel putting some powder into his milk. When he asked her about it, she said it was just sugar. Rajesh didn't think much about it then, but later, he started to wonder why she always made him drink milk, even when he didn't want to. After some time, Rajesh's health got so bad that one morning, he couldn't even get up without throwing up. He started to think about everything: the forced nights, the powder in his milk, and his getting sick. He realized Isabel might be drugging him to control him. Knowing this, Rajesh knew he had to get away from her. He started planning how to leave this harmful situation and take back control of his life. The relationship he thought was saving him was actually hurting him, and the person he trusted was the one causing him pain. Rajesh was determined to break free and find peace again, even though he knew it wouldn't be easy. It became a regular occurrence for Rajesh to vomit blood. When he asked his physician what was wrong, the doctor brushed it off as some kind of infection. Rajesh started to act drowsy around Isabel, but when she left, he would roam around the house, his curiosity growing. One day, he discovered a locked room on the backside of the mansion. When he asked Isabel about it, she refused to give any details and sternly warned him never to go near it. His curiosity deepened, and he tried to ask the butler and the maid about the room, but they all shivered with fear and begged him to stay away from it. One day, one of the butlers attempted to tell Rajesh the secret and even handed him the key. However, at that moment, Isabel came home unexpectedly. She angrily snatched the key from Rajesh, ordered him to go to his room, and locked him in there. After some time, Rajesh heard a gunshot and cried out of fear. Just then, Isabel knocked on the door. After knocking 3 times, Rajesh opened it, and Isabel screamed at him, hurling abuses. About 30 minutes later, she returned, apologized, and gave him a massage. Rajesh pretended to be asleep, and once Isabel left, he woke up and searched her name on the internet. To his horror, he found her picture on multiple renowned sites describing her as a creepy lady with multiple husbands. Panicked, Rajesh immediately called William and asked him to meet him. When William arrived, Rajesh shared his findings. Together they went to the locked room, broke its lock, and went inside. The room was filled with dust, bugs, and lizards, creating a horrible sight. They started looking through the files they found there and discovered that Isabel was regarded as criminally insane and had a hobby of marrying young boys. She had married 13 boys, all of whom had disappeared. Isabel had been arrested multiple times and had been committed to an asylum. However, she would bribe the doctor to release her each time. William revealed that Isabel was a woman who had been kicked out of the family due to her insane behavior. This news shocked Rajesh further, realizing he was living with a dangerous woman capable of unimaginable things. William urged Rajesh to leave the house immediately and promised to help him find a safe place. Rajesh, now terrified and desperate, knew he had to escape before he became just another one of Isabel's victims. The reality of his situation sank in deeply. He was in grave danger. As they searched the room for more evidence, William accidentally pressed against a wall and discovered a hidden door. What they found behind it was even more horrifying. There were 13 bodies preserved in glass tanks, mummified, along with multiple other skeletons, human body parts, a sacrificed black goat, a caged owl, and terrifying images of satanic idols. Shocked by these gruesome sights, Rajesh and William heard a car engine. Isabel had returned. They immediately ran back, carefully closing the hidden door behind them. Rajesh went to greet Isabel to keep up appearances, while William hurried to call the police. The police asked them to remain calm and assured them that help would arrive soon. Isabel went to the restroom to freshen up. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. Both William and Rajesh rushed to answer it, hoping it was the police, but as soon as they opened the door, Rajesh was punched in the face and fell to the ground. Before William could react, he was shot in the head and collapsed next to Rajesh. Rajesh lay there, sobbing softly, unable to move from the shock and pain. Then he heard Isabel's footsteps approaching. She came out, laughing wickedly. To Rajesh's horror, standing at the door with her was the police commissioner, who was also laughing. He greeted Isabel and boasted that he had once again proved his loyalty to her. Isabel hugged the commissioner and instructed him to bring the bodies down to her basement. As they dragged Rajesh towards the basement, he overheard the commissioner tell Isabel that they had finally gathered 15 bodies of young boys, and now they could perform the spell of eternal youth on the 14th night of the moon. Rajesh heard their cruel laughs as he slowly lost consciousness. They went into the basement and preserved their bodies, positioning them carefully on the remaining 2 slabs. 2 days later, on the 14th night of the moon, they prepared for the ritual. They went into the basement and placed the preserved bodies on 2 slabs. Then, they pressed a button to open the roof. Moonlight streamed in through a prism, splitting into red beams that formed a scary pattern on the floor. All 15 bodies lay under the moonlight, ready for the ritual to begin. As the ritual began, the darkened basement of Isabel's mansion was momentarily transformed by a haunting light show. The moonlight, directed through a carefully placed prism, cast an intricate network of red beams that converged into a sinister, satanic symbol on the floor. Surrounded by this ghastly light, the commissioner and Isabel joined hands over the arranged slabs where the preserved bodies lay. In unison, they chanted an ancient and ominous spell. Veil of night and moon's embrace, arise the shadows from their resting place. Through time's gate, let past merge with now. Eternal youth to us allow. As the ritual's final words echoed in the cold basement, the bodies briefly glowed with a ghostly light. suggesting a connection to something ancient and mysterious. But suddenly, the glow stopped and the room went dark again, leaving a feeling of failure in the air. Upset by how the ritual failed, the commissioner and Isabel started arguing fiercely. They blamed each other, and the commissioner ended up calling the whole thing a hoax. As he tried to leave, Isabel, desperate and worried about getting into trouble, grabbed his gun and shot him. The commissioner fell to the ground, dead. After William's mysterious disappearance, his father, driven by grief and concern, relentlessly pursued the truth behind what happened to his son. His efforts led to the appointment of a new police commissioner who was committed to uncovering the truth. The new commissioner initiated several detailed search operations on Isabel's properties. Suspecting that they might hold clues to William's fate, teams of investigators scoured through Isabel's vast mansion, checked abandoned buildings, and dug through remote landholdings. Despite their thoroughness, these searches initially turned up little more than some old documents and personal belongings of no significant value. Frustration mounted as each lead seemed to end in a dead end. However, not deterred, the commissioner ordered a deeper analysis of the connections between the properties. It was during this review that a chilling pattern emerged. The properties, when plotted on a map, formed a perfect pentagram with Isabel's mansion at the direct center. This grim discovery suggested a sinister intent behind their arrangement and renewed energy in the investigation. The new commissioner, determined to solve the mystery surrounding Isabel and her connections, closely examined all the cases where Isabel was involved. He discovered a troubling pattern. Every time Isabel was linked to a case, crucial files would mysteriously disappear, or evidence would be tampered with to clear her name. Additionally, he found multiple reports of young boys who had gone missing under suspicious circumstances. These boys were supposedly under Isabel's care, yet she never reported any of them missing herself. The commissioner crafted a careful plan to recognize the need for a new approach to gather direct evidence. He introduced a young boy with a made-up background into the community where Isabel lived. Isabel quickly took an interest in the new boy, believing that she needed a husband to make her spells work correctly. Pretending to be helpful and caring, she invited him into her mansion. This boy was working for the commission and performed his role well. He kept the commissioner updated on everything that happened inside the mansion. Whenever Isabel was out, he took the chance to explore and look for any clues. One day, while Isabel was away, he discovered a hidden door at the back of the mansion. Excited by this find, he immediately informed the commissioner. Seeing this as the perfect opportunity to catch Isabel red-handed, the boy agreed to Isabel's proposal of marriage. Isabel, thrilled and blinded by her need to succeed in her next ritual, didn't suspect that the boy had other motives. On the night before their wedding, the boy slipped sleeping pills into Isabel's drink. Once she was sound asleep, he signaled the commissioner. Together, they opened the hidden door and found a room full of damning evidence, including items from missing persons and artifacts related to her rituals. They carefully documented everything, knowing this was the proof they needed to bring Isabel to justice. The next morning, armed with a search warrant and backed by police, the commissioner arrived at Isabel's mansion. When Isabel realized what was happening, she panicked. In a desperate move, she grabbed a gun and threatened to shoot herself and the boy. However, the boy had secretly replaced the bullets with blanks, making the gun harmless. Realizing her options were exhausted, Isabel was arrested without causing harm. Isabel was taken to court, where the evidence against her was overwhelming. She was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. However, on the first morning of her sentence, guards found Isabel dead in her cell. The circumstances of her death were unclear, leaving everyone wondering if she had taken her own life or if something else had happened. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, comment, and turn on notifications to stay updated with our latest content.